Welcome back to Buy or Sell, the series where you pitch me your predictions for the theme park world, and I either buy or sell them and explain why. If you want your idea considered for the next video, leave a comment below starting with Buy or Sell. In this episode, we look at Holiday World's newfound relationship with Vekoma, which Cedar Fair Park is set to rise to the upper tier in the new chain, and if the latest accident on Banshee will lead to sweeping changes on loose articles. This is Buy or Sell, episode 31. Let's start with Mr. Orange. A Mack Stryker coaster will be the next to break the inversion record. Last episode, we talked about the future of the Stryker coaster, the brand new model that made its grand debut this year at Europa Park, that being Vulture, and it's getting rave reviews. A lot of people are saying it's Mack's best coaster, and that's saying a lot considering they built DC rivals and Ride to Happiness. Vulture has 7 inversions. That's very impressive for a prototype. And we know that Austria's Phantasiana is getting one next year, and it sounds like France's Nicoland is getting one in the next couple years. There's already a growing market for these in Europe, and that makes me want to buy this. The current record belongs to Gerstlauer, their Infinity coaster, the Smiler, having 14, and the Stryker coaster is a very similar model, just in terms of the track type and the 4-row, 4-across trains. If someone decides to break the record, it could very well be another Gerstlauer, but given the popularity of the Stryker, it's not a bad bet to think that will be the next to do it. Twisted Jake. Epic Universe buys another coaster within 5 years of opening. Epic Universe opens next summer and it's gonna have 4 coasters. 3 of them will be family/smile thrill coasters, and the 4th will be Stardust Racers, the dueling mock launch coasters. That's a lot of coasters to open with. When Islands of Adventure opened in 1999, they had 3 coasters. 4 if you count Dueling Dragons as 2, and they added Flying Unicorn the year after. Then, they didn't get a new coaster until 2019. If Epic Universe was opening with 2, I would say, sure, they might add another one in the next 5 years, but they're starting off big, so I bet they're good on coasters for a while. I'm selling this. That being said, they're gonna start expanding as soon as they open. That includes adding on to existing areas, and they're also creating a brand new area. If they do this in the next 5 years, that's where your new coaster might come from. That is, if they decide to put a new coaster there, which is still a big if. No thanks. After good gravy, Holiday World will work with Vekoma to install a hyper. Whenever a park opens a new relationship with a manufacturer, it can be exciting. If the project goes well, you can be pretty sure they're gonna work together again. Holiday World opened a relationship with CCI when they built Raven. They went back to get Legend. And after CCI went under and their engineers formed the Gravity Group, their second project ever was the Voyage. Now, Holiday World did go to B&M for Thunderbird, and 9 years later, that remains the only B&M. That could be just because B&Ms are so expensive, and it wasn't in their budget to go back to them anytime soon. However, I am buying this because Vekoma shouldn't cost as much. I bet one of those Vekoma hypers is much less than a B&M hyper, and even though I'm not super confident in their next coaster being a hyper, I feel pretty good about their next big thrill coaster being from Vekoma. That one Capybara. Great Escape gets another new coaster in the next 3 to 5 years. Great Escape just opened Bobcat, the first new coaster in 19 years. They were on a pretty good streak in the late 90s. They got new coasters in 97, 98, and 99, and then 03 and 05. Since then, nothing. Then, last year, they announced a Gravity Group family wooden coaster, and that gets people excited. But then you remember, they just removed Alpine Bobsled, the intimate bobsled that was twice relocated, the one that had 40 years of service under its belt, but lately had been closed more than it was open, and it finally reached the end of its rope. Great Escape only had 6 coasters. This left a big hole in their lineup, and Six Flags found a pretty cheap option to replace it. That's all this was. I'm selling it. Great Escape is still Great Escape. They aren't trying to turn this into something it's not. They're not building this up for any reason. They were just replacing one big coaster with another one, and I would not expect them to get a new one until their next coaster goes down. That being said, Steam and Demon won't last forever, so it may not be too long from now. Chuck Riggs. Six Flags St. Louis' next 2 coasters are RMC Boss and new trains and new theme on Ninja. Last year, they got their first new coaster in 10 years. It was a family coaster, but it was something the park really needed. They didn't have anything for kids before Ricky Racer. I have no idea when they plan on getting something new, but for this question, that doesn't really matter. Just what they're gonna do next, even if it takes another 10 years. Let's start with Ninja. I'm gonna buy that half of it. Ninja might be taken out soon, but if I had to bet on it, I think it stays. In fact, I think it's more likely to get the Blue Hawk treatment. New trains, new paint job, new theme, and look at where it is in the park, right across from Batman the Ride. It would totally make sense to get a DC Comics facelift. Which character? I don't know. Joker makes sense, but they already have a Joker. But they could rename it. Or knowing Six Flags, maybe they just have 2. As for RMC Boss, I have to sell. I know this was a real possibility in the past, but at this point, I'm just not confident that's still in play. They'll probably do something else before this happens, if it ever does. Keep an eye out for any retracking. The more work it gets, the less likely they'll call RMC. Thrills have a beard. The Banshee incident will add more metal detectors to the rides. For those who don't know, back in mid-June, a guy rode Banshee and lost his keys, so he jumped a fence to get them back and a train came by and hit him and he died. This is certainly not the first time it's happened. Just from my own personal memory, this happened at Flight Deck at Great America in 1998. Batman the Ride at Six Flags Over Georgia in 2008. Happened again on Raptor at Cedar Point in 2015. And now you have this one. There's one obvious common theme. These are inverted coasters. The train is under the track and apparently it's hard to avoid. Going off on a bit of a tangent here, I don't know because I've never done this and never will, but you think if you're in a danger zone, your top priority is avoiding the train, and maybe it's too loud and they don't hear it coming, or they think they have a lot more room than they do. But you only hear about deaths on inverted coasters, so this probably happens all the time with non-inverted coasters, and those people either get out unscathed, or they get ejected and prosecuted. Still, this is a pretty rare incident. It grabs all the headlines and causes the parks to remind people that fences are there for a reason. So to think an incident like this would change loose article policies, I don't think so. I'm selling this. That's not to say isolated incidents don't cause changes to policy. It was a cell phone flying out of someone's pocket and into someone's face that caused Cedar Fair to change their policy on their RMCs. Both Twisted Timbers and Steel Vengeance put in stringent loose article policies after that. If you don't have your phone or keys in your pocket, you can't lose it on the ride. But I don't think the parks feel the same sense of liability when someone breaks the law and jumps a fence, the way they do when a loose item hurts an innocent person on a train. Still, I'm afraid the way for the future is lockers everywhere. That's already the default position for Great Adventure. Top Thrill 2 is doing it. It's a growing trend for big new coasters. And maybe, down the line, it'll be a blanket policy for all coasters everywhere, especially if people keep getting hurt by flying phones. Marbleo. The recent flooding at Valleyfair will give officials reason to tear down Excalibur, just in time for a new coaster. I think Valleyfair is just like Great Escape. Low-tier parks in the chain, not getting any new coasters for well over a decade, and their best chance at getting a new coaster is if they remove an existing one. Valleyfair's last coaster was Cosmic Coaster in 2011. That's for kids. Their last major coaster was Renegade in 2007. If you can math, you'll realize that was 17 years ago. Just like they did for Dorney Park this year, I'm buying this. I think Valleyfair's time is coming. This lines up with Excalibur flooding once again. It's old, it's detached from the rest of the park, it's hard to find, so I think the stars are aligning for Valleyfair. Goodbye Excalibur, hello new coaster. Worlds of Fun got a new one in 2023, Dorney in 2024, so maybe it's Valleyfair's time. Their 50th anniversary is coming up in 2026, so I'd say keep your eye out for then. Human. Kentucky Kingdom will announce a new coaster for 2025. T3 was finally torn down this year, last operational in 2022, so now it's go time for Hershen. They bought the rights to operate this park back in 2021, and so far we haven't seen much from them. Their greatest contribution has been removing the terrible T3. You would think, when one major coaster gets removed, you have a nice big plot of land that's open, you gotta replace it. The one fear is that T3 sits right in the middle of the water park, so maybe they use it for water slides, but in this case I don't think so. I'm buying that a new coaster will be announced later this year for 2025. When you have a park that only has a few major coasters, right now it has 5 and only 3 can be considered extreme. I don't think you can afford to lose one and not replace it. Same exact concept as Great Escape, and to a lesser extent, Valleyfair. Strumsky Steel and Jimmy Zhang. In the next few years, we will see an access coaster in the Six Flags Cedar Fair chain. The access coaster will make its debut in Saudi Arabia in 2025. This one being a very small, compact version, something I don't really see coming to a major chain park. That doesn't mean I can't see any access coming to a major legit park. It would just be a bigger version, and I don't think we're gonna see anything like that pop up in the next few years. So, does the new Six Flags Cedar Fair chain really want to be the first to do it? I'm selling that. In a previous buy or sell, I had a question about S&S abandoning coasters altogether, given their problems with Steel Curtain and some of their launch coasters, and I said they weren't gonna do that. Their catalog is way too diverse to scare all their customers away, but I think the new Six Flags chain would shy away from being the first one to buy a large-scale access. Keep your eyes on the one in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if anyone's gonna ride it and review it, but I'm curious how reliable it is, how thrilling it'll be. I know a lot of people rode the prototype in Utah, but that was just an oval layout. But needless to say, the jury is still out on the access. Operager, King's Dominion, or Knott's moves into the top tier of the new Six Flags chain. Some people say Knott's is already in the top tier, but I get the question. When I rank the parks, I think, from the ones that come from Cedar Fair, the top tier is Cedar Point, Kings Island, Carowinds, and Canada's Wonderland. Knott's and King's Dominion are one step down in the middle tier. I think Great America has dropped down to the bottom tier along with the rest of the small parks. I don't think Knott's moves up or down, no matter how you classify them, but I'm buying this for King's Dominion. I don't know this for sure, but there are signs that King's Dominion could move up. First, they're getting a launch swing coaster in 2025. That project is already vertical. That is a huge addition. It's going to be one of the best new coasters of 2025, and it could really launch the park to a new level. Second, King's Dominion almost became a top-tier Cedar Fair park in 2013. Cedar Fair was trying to build up Carowinds and King's Dominion. The local government was very friendly when it came to Carowinds, but they didn't want to play ball with Cedar Fair when it came to King's Dominion. Therefore, Carowinds got all the great investments starting in 2015, and King's Dominion didn't. Let's say the government starts approving tax breaks and massaging the new Six Flags chain. They already know the potential is there. Last I checked, the park has a lot of unused land. As of 2019, they had 740 acres and were only using 280. This park is ripe to explode, they just need a spark. Sea Parks 92. Top Thrill 2 and Steel Curtain both get demolished in the next 5 to 10 years. These two coasters are the story of 2024. Steel Curtain has been a mess since it opened in 2019, and this year they just put it on the shelf, not opening at all, hoping to fix its problems once and for all. Apparently, these problems are structural, so SNS is going to try to fix it. But if this doesn't work, I don't think this ride has much of a future. We may have already seen its last day. I'm buying this being gone within 10 years, maybe much sooner. As for Top Thrill 2, I'm more optimistic. Even if it takes Amperla a whole year to figure it out, Cedar Point will wait and they'll see what Amperla can come up with. They've invested too much time and money to give up so soon, so they'll give it a fair shake. I think it does reopen, if not this year, then next year, but that doesn't mean this will be fine going forward. One problem down, another one pops up, and it just becomes a whack-a-mole of problems. Maybe with the launch, maybe with the trains again. Maybe it's down way more than it's up and it just gets way too expensive. And within 10 years, they pull the plug. It's one scenario. It's a dire scenario, but it's a realistic scenario, so I'm buying it. I would not be one bit surprised if by 2034, Steel Curtain and Top Thrill 2 are long gone. Ollie. To increase their workload, GCI and Gravity Group start making steel coasters in the next 10 years. You do see companies make both wood and steel. Intamin, Vekoma, SNS, RMC, but these are primarily steel companies trying their hand in wood. To my knowledge, we have never seen a wood company try to make a steel coaster. DIN, CCI, GCI, Gravity Group. Okay, PTC did make one steel coaster. The one we now know is Black Diamond at Knoebels, but that's literally the only one. I'm selling this. GCI does have their Titan track, and that can be considered a steel coaster if they use it for the whole thing, but I don't think that was the spirit of the question. Wooden coasters are dwindling. Only 3 are opening this year, only 1 last year, only 2 in 2022. But these manufacturers don't just make new coasters. They do a lot of work restoring wooden coasters. GCI has their Titan track, and Gravity Group has their laser pre-cut track. I think these companies are doing just fine without trying their hand in steel. That's a wrap on episode 31. Let me know what you think of any of these topics, if you agree or disagree, and why. Also, don't forget, if you want your idea considered for the next video, leave it in the comments below, starting with buy or sell. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I have a playlist with all the buy or sell episodes. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to love baseball. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.